Welcome back to Through the Forest Window, a podcast about a place, a legacy, and the lessons learned deep in the woods of Ontario, Canada. I'm Terry Kelly, and I'm continuing to share with you a story that spans generations, seasons, and the profound connections we forge with the places that offer us retreat from the everyday world. In our previous episode, we journeyed through the summer of 2010, a season of firsts without my father. We explored those early summer days as the cabin began taking shape, from Father's Day and my father's birthday to family gatherings with Emma and Chloe, as we all found ways to honor his memory while creating new experiences on the land he loved. Today, we'll journey through the fall of 2010. The cabin itself was taking physical shape with each piece of pine siding, while our family settled into new rhythms and continued the traditions that had long been part of life on this land. Fall in Ontario's woodlands is a time of transition, leaves turning brilliant shades of red and gold, wildlife preparing for winter, the trails opening up as the foliage recedes, and the forest revealing different aspects of its character. It's a season that invites both reflection and forward momentum, and the cabin provided the perfect setting for both. What you're about to hear comes from several entries in the logbook, spanning from late September through December 2010, entries that capture the cabin's physical evolution, our family's Thanksgiving gathering, a special ceremony to honor my father, and the beginning of hunting season, a tradition deeply entwined with the property's heritage. The hunting heritage. Before we dive into the fall logbook entries, I want to share some context about what makes this season particularly significant on our property. The land was originally acquired in 1975 for a single purpose. My dad and his brothers wanted to secure a place to hunt. This coming fall, in 2025, will mark a half-century of hunting on this property. 50 years of traditions, stories, and generations of our family connecting with the land through this practice. Hunting season was always a sacred time in our family calendar. As a child, I have vivid memories of Dad departing for his 2-week hunting expedition, the anticipation, the preparations, and most of all, the waiting. I would station myself by our front window at home, watching for his return during the middle weekend and then again at the end of the season. The moment his truck would appear in the driveway felt like Christmas morning. I'd race out to hear his stories, to see if he'd been successful, to reconnect after what felt like an eternity to a young boy. My own relationship with hunting followed a different path than what might have been expected. As I approached legal hunting age, I discovered something about myself. I simply couldn't picture myself shooting a large mammal. My interest in firearms waned, and I found other ways to connect with the land. Despite the fact I wouldn't shoot or carry a gun, I still participated in the occasional hunt to connect with my dad, uncles, and cousins. I remember one hunting trip with my dad as a young adult, sitting near the base of a large tree during moose season. The quiet of the forest, the stillness required, it lulled me to sleep right there in the woods. Dad woke me when a large buck wandered past, only 8 to 10 feet away. "We can't shoot it. It's out of season," he whispered. But there was something magical about that shared moment of observation rather than pursuit. It's important to note that while I chose not to become a hunter myself, I'm not anti-hunting by any means. I deeply respect the practice when done with skill and reverence, as my family has always approached it. I occasionally participate in hunting season, helping with the dogs, supporting my uncles and cousins, being part of the experience in my own way. This respect for hunting runs deep in our family history. My mom grew up in a large family in the deep woods of New Brunswick, where hunting wasn't sport, but survival. With 14 children to feed, putting food on the table was a family affair. My grandfather would hunt larger game, but everyone participated in their own way. Mom herself snared rabbits and fished for trout in the nearby stream from a young age. She often told me how they would hang a moose in the shed after a successful hunt, and the family would preserve every bit of meat they could, even canning portions to last through leaner times. They lived off whatever the land provided, each family member developing their own skills and contributing to their collective sustenance. For that generation, hunting and foraging weren't recreational pursuits, but essential life skills and a direct connection to their survival. Years after my father and uncles purchased our Ontario property, I had my own significant hunting experience, though not as the hunter. I was with my uncles when they shot their first moose on the property, near the spot we all refer to as the White Birches. The excitement, the sense of accomplishment, I understood why this tradition meant so much to my father and continues to mean so much to our family. This fall of 2010 marked the first hunting season without my father present. As you'll hear in the logbook entries, the traditions continued, tracking deer, working with the dogs, sharing meals, and stories at the end of the day. In many ways, hunting season provided a framework for continuity during a time of change, a set of familiar rituals that helped bridge past and present. Pine in memory. As summer gave way to fall, the cabin continued its physical transformation. In late September, a significant milestone in this process was reached, as captured in this logbook entry. Jim had been back since Wednesday and was working for me putting up pine siding. Jim made a lot of progress. It looks amazing. Mike and Emma and Evan arrived in the morning and we had a ceremony, Emma's idea, at the location where Dad shot his last buck a few years ago. The installation of the pine siding represented a pivotal moment when the cabin began to take on its distinctive character and aesthetic identity. Jim, who had carpentry skills that were instrumental to the project, helped transform the structure from a basic framework into something with personality and warmth. There's a special satisfaction that comes from seeing a vision materialize, watching as raw wood becomes shelter, as a structure becomes a home. What resonates most deeply with me about this entry is the ceremony where my father had shot his last buck. This was my niece Emma's idea, a child's intuitive way of honoring her grandfather's memory by creating a special moment in a spot significant to him. Children often understand instinctively what adults struggle to articulate, that remembrance can be active and life-affirming, not just solemn and retrospective. 2 weeks later, another entry captures more progress on the siding, but also how the cabin was becoming a social space. Chris, my other carpenter and friend, arrived around 2 p.m. and we worked on the pine siding. Pete and Matt decided to come up for the night and arrived around 9 p.m. We had a roast beef dinner, guitar and beer for remainder of the night. We telescoped and viewed craters on the moon. What emerges from these entries is how the cabin was becoming not just a physical structure, but a gathering place, a spot where friends could drop by for an impromptu visit, where work and leisure blended together naturally. The contrast is telling. During the day, the focus was on construction and progress. By evening, the space transformed into a place for connection, music, and even stargazing. Viewing the moon's craters through a telescope on a fall night feels particularly significant. The moon is perhaps the perfect metaphor for remembrance, always changing yet always present, waxing and waning but never truly disappearing. Like memory itself, it shows different faces at different times, but remains a constant presence in our night sky. Building the cabin that fall was like that too. A constant process of creating something new, while simultaneously preserving connections to the past. Each board of pine siding nailed into place was both an act of creation and an act of remembrance. building something new on a foundation my father had helped establish, both literally and figuratively. Thanksgiving and ceremony. In Canadian culture, Thanksgiving falls in October, coinciding with the peak of autumn colors in Ontario. The 2010 Thanksgiving weekend marked our first major family gathering at the property since my father's passing. The entry from that weekend includes this remarkable detail. 54 people attended the festivities this weekend. The uncles prepared a spot for Dad's ceremony at the blue chair. It's beautiful. 54 people. That number alone speaks volumes about the central role this property played in our extended family's life. This wasn't just a cabin in the woods or a hunting camp. It was a nexus of connection for an entire extended family. A place important enough that dozens of people would make the journey to gather there during the Thanksgiving holiday. The brief mention of preparations for my father's ceremony introduces something that would take place a few weeks later. It became one of his favorite hunting spots, a place where he could sit quietly, observe the forest, and connect with the land. That we chose this location for his ceremony speaks to how intimately my father's identity was tied to these woods. That Thanksgiving weekend also held another special moment of remembrance through music. My mother, Ellie Kelly, stayed with me at the cabin both nights. One evening, we recorded one of her songs, Going Home, a piece she had written and performed at my father's funeral months earlier. Here's the audio file from that night. There was something deeply meaningful about capturing this song in the cabin, with its raw wooden walls and the forest darkness surrounding us. As you listen to my mother's accordion and my guitar, imagine us in that small cabin, the wood stove crackling, the darkness of the forest pressing against the windows. The song that had accompanied our formal farewell to my father now found a new resonance in this place he had loved, performed by the woman who had shared his life for decades. This musical moment at Thanksgiving and the preparations for the ceremony at the Blue Chair were all part of our ongoing process of honoring my father's memory in ways that reflected who he truly was, connected to this land, this family, these traditions. The actual ceremony took place a few weeks later, in late October, coinciding with the beginning of hunting season, a fitting time to honor a man who had found such joy in these woods. We had Dad's ceremony at the Blue Chair on Sunday at around noon. Present were my cousin Steve, my cousin Tom, my Uncle Bob, Uncle Jack, Uncle Leonard, my cousin Paul, my Uncle Pat, my brother Mike, me, my mom, my sister Lisa, my spouse Tracy, my nieces Emma and Ava, and my nephew Logan. Uncle Jack said a prayer and poem, and Paul said some words. I spoke some. Dad is now where he wanted to be. The simple listing of names in this entry creates its own kind of ceremony on the page, an acknowledgement of all who gathered to honor my father. 3 generations came together in the woods he loved, creating a circle of remembrance that bridged past and future. What's particularly moving to me is the straightforward statement, Dad is now where he wanted to be. There's a profound peace in that sentence, the recognition that in returning him to this land, we were honoring not just his memory, but his deepest wishes. The forest had been his sanctuary in life. Now it would hold his memory in perpetuity. The entry continues with a description of the hunting that followed the ceremony. I stayed for the first day of hunting and went out with my brother Mike in the morning. I blew out Dad's candle Monday night and hugged my brother. It was nice. This juxtaposition, a ceremony of remembrance, followed immediately by the beginning of hunting season, captures something essential about how we honor those we've lost. Sometimes the most profound tribute isn't a formal ritual, but simply continuing the traditions they cherished. My father would have appreciated that his ceremony didn't interrupt the hunting season, but became part of it. Another chapter in the property's ongoing story. The final image, blowing out a candle lit in remembrance, embracing my brother, speaks to the intimate rituals that help us process grief. No grand gestures, just a quiet moment of connection in the wake of loss. In that simple act, there's an acknowledgement that while the formal ceremony had concluded, the ongoing work of remembrance would continue in countless small moments like this one. Solitude and reflection. As fall deepened toward winter, the logbook entries capture more solitary visits to the cabin, times of quiet work and reflection that balance the communal gatherings of Thanksgiving and the ceremony. The entry from mid-November offers a glimpse into these more personal moments. I spent Friday night sharpening axes, sanding handles, and applying linseed oil to the axe handles. On Saturday, I worked the land and took down a poplar. I thought it was a maple tree, but knew it wasn't one when the axe went into it. Later, I sharpened my axes and tree trimmer, had dinner and listened to music, sat outside and relaxed, thought of Dad. There's something deeply meditative about the activities described here: sharpening axes, sanding handles, applying linseed oil. These quiet, repetitive tasks provide a kind of physical meditation, a way of connecting with the present moment through tactile engagement with tools. The mistaken identity of the tree, thinking it was maple until the axe revealed it as poplar, is a small moment that speaks to the ongoing process of learning the land. I have to laugh at how little I actually knew about trees back then. I embarrassingly called anything with needles a pine tree, and couldn't tell the difference between hardwood and softwood trees, let alone identify specific species by name. My knowledge was as basic as it gets. Trees were either pine trees with needles or regular trees with leaves. But that's one of the gifts the cabin has given me over the years. With each season spent there, my understanding deepened. I eventually learned to identify trees from their bark patterns, canopy shapes, and even by smell. I reached the point where I could tell what wood was burning in the wood stove based solely on the scent of smoke drifting outside. I became particularly fond of black cherry trees. I would often encounter dead ones standing in the woods, their fruit tree wood somehow preserved without rotting through the years, making perfect, already dried firewood. These weren't just academic lessons, they were practical skills that connected me more deeply to the land. Even as someone who had grown up visiting this property, I was still developing my knowledge of its particulars, still learning to read its signs and patterns. This ongoing education is part of what makes a place truly ours. The accumulation of small lessons and observations over time. The cabin wasn't just a place for me during this period. Other friends and family members began to discover its restorative qualities as well, as reflected in this entry from a friend, Matt.
Did nothing, just relaxed and ignored everything in the world. That is the greatest part of a place like this. Had an awesome roast for dinner, pancakes and coffee for breakfast, all cooked on the wood stove.
Matt captures something essential about what the cabin was becoming, a place where doing nothing was actually doing something profound. This ability to disconnect, to step outside the stream of daily concerns and simply be present is one of the most precious gifts a retreat in the woods can offer. The final entry from fall 2010 brings the year full circle with another visit from my niece Emma. Emma and I arrived around 3 p.m. Saturday. We had some of Mom's Frico and watched $1 Million Baby. The generator failed initially and then I added some oil. This brief entry on December 19th captures the cabin in its early winter dormancy. The practical challenges of running a generator in cold weather. The comfort of Mom's Frico, a traditional Acadian chicken stew with dumplings reflecting our family's heritage. I'm struck by how quickly the ordinary asserted itself alongside the extraordinary. In the same season that we held a ceremony to honor my father's memory, we also dealt with generator issues, enjoyed traditional family recipes, and watched movies on cold evenings. This juxtaposition is perhaps the most honest portrait of grief. The way it doesn't stand apart from daily life, but becomes woven into its fabric, present in both momentous occasions and mundane moments. Looking back at these fall entries now, I'm struck by how quickly the cabin established itself as a multifaceted presence in our lives, a work project, a gathering place, a site for ceremony, a personal retreat. In just a few months, it had already begun to fulfill the vision I'd had when starting construction, creating a space where my father's memory could live alongside new experiences, where tradition and innovation could coexist, where solitude and community could each find their proper place. The fall of 2010 marked a significant period of transition for both the cabin and our family. As the pine siding went up and the interior took shape, the cabin began to establish its physical identity. Simultaneously, we found ways to honor my father's memory while continuing the traditions he had helped establish on this land. In our next episode, we'll explore entries from the winter of 2010 to 2011, as the cabin experienced a season under snow, and as we discovered the unique challenges and quiet beauty that come with maintaining a relationship with the land during the coldest months of the year. Thank you for joining me for this third episode of Through the Forest Window. Until next time, may you find spaces in your own life where memory and presence can dance together as they do in these forest lands we call home. Through the Forest Window is written and narrated by Terry Kelly, supported by artificial intelligence technology. The theme music from this episode was written or recorded by Terry Kelly, derived from years of voice memo recordings, unreleased material, and works in progress. Tracy Fenton appears on piano in one of the tracks. Ellie Kelly's accordion music, including a studio recording of Going Home, featured earlier in this episode, is available on streaming platforms. Special thanks to Matt for his logbook entry shared in this episode. Tracy Fenton provides artistic direction support, and Ken Tizard masters all podcast episodes.